I saw a reader's comment when I was using the code word, and after thinking about it, I would like to explain it briefly. Regarding SCP, people often say that there is no difference, but I don't want to follow too much. I am the original work party, and I never watch TV adaptations, because after the changes, the charm of the original works is lost. So I have always been committed to keeping all the projects as they are in everyone's minds, including their abilities, the sites they are on, the experiments they have experienced, and their personalities. But in order to maintain the fluency and sense of substitution in the story, many times have to make some compromises. For example, there should be no Chinese in the novel proposed by the reader, and 682 should be on SITE19. I know all of these, but I can't help it. I am writing a novel for Chinese people. SCP is a co-author, and many worldviews are in conflict. I can only select some that are in line with the public's perception, make certain adaptations, and insert them into my own storyline. For the party, the book may be full of loopholes, or even unsightly, but the strength of the author is here. I also want to improve, but it may take time. Besides, how do you know that it is not foreshadowing? I wrote this novel, one is to make money, and the second is to let some people who don't know SCP have another way to understand the foundation. Even if one person has fallen into the hole because of my novel, I didn't write it in vain. At the end, please squirt gently. See an old farmer selling vegetables on the side of the road. If you think his vegetables are not fresh, just leave and leave a little kindness to each other. Add, regarding the issue of rewards and additions, the general rule in the industry is 10,000 rewards plus more updates, but the author is a newcomer, so you get a discount. If you are a newcomer, you will get one more reward for 5,000 points. There is no cap, but the author is disabled, please the boss is merciful. Thank you all. Name: Zhangju. Age: 26. Home address: Number 28, Huanhua Street, Jianghai City. I repeat, there is no place like Jianghai City here. Ah sir, I have said it many times, I have amnesia, I only remember these, and I forgot everything else. In the interrogation room, Zhangju sat leaning on a chair with handcuffs, his eyes emptied, and he looked immortal. Obviously, this type of dialogue is not the first time. Boy, I urge you to correct your attitude and answer your questions well. The interrogator patted the table and pointed to the 8 characters behind him, confessed, lenient, resisted and strict, see where this is. Do you want to go to jail? Zhangju is still dying, and he hasn't changed at all because of the threat from the other party. I don't know where this is. He lazily said, but I know, you are not a police inspector, and this is not a police bureau. After Zhangju finished speaking, the interrogator's face changed slightly, but there was no sound. Let's put it this way. Zhangju said, I enter the police station more often than you peek at your mother's bath. I can smell the police with my eyes closed, and you, he stretched out index finger, shook, no. The interrogator sat up straight, boy, don't be scammed, you will only suffer if you don't cooperate. Zhangju smiled and said, if you want me to cooperate, you can, change a higher level person to talk to me, you are not qualified, go home and play a game console. The interrogator slapped the table and wanted to step forward to teach Zhangju. Then a voice came from his headset. He stopped and replied in a low voice, okay, I see. The interrogator gave Zhangju a fierce look, opened the door and walked out of the interrogation room. Zhangju shrugged as he watched the interrogator walk out of the room. The reason why he was kept in this place was not because he was kidnapped, but because he was in trouble. To be precise, he passed through. It was probably because he had a dream. In the dream, he was chased by a lizard and escaped by chance. After waking up, he was here. He was taken into the world of SCP. SCP, the full name of the SCP Foundation, is a mysterious organization whose operations are not subject to any state government interference. Its goal is to contain anomalous phenomena, events, individuals, etc. in the world, and are collectively referred to as containment objects, namely SCPs. The black lizard that hunted him down is one of the SCP containment objects, the undead SCP-682 known as the Immortal Lizard. In fact, none of the things contained by the SCP Foundation are easy to mess with. If some things are released, they may even cause world-class disasters. For example, if you see it, it will kill you at all costs. For example, if you don't see it, it will teleport behind you and break your neck. For example, those who are sealed with the Supreme Divinity, such as those reality benders who want to do things they want, and those who touch or die, or even know or die, mimetic anomalies. As far as he knows, there have been at least 2 instances of the SCP Foundation restarting the world because it could not handle the contents. Compared with them, the undead lizard 682, who cannot be physically killed, is as friendly as a kitten. He came through out of thin air, his identity is suspicious, so the SCP Foundation is conducting a comprehensive investigation and evaluation of him. After the interrogator left, a tall man in a white coat walked in. He was tall and sturdy, and he knew that he was a person who exercised all the year round. His clothes are obviously different from the previous interrogator, and he seems to be a researcher. Yeah, I changed to a fitness coach this time. Zhang Ju continued to talk trash. Is there no more normal people here? The researcher walked to the back of the table and sat down. You can call me Dr. Li. I want to remind you, put away your set, it won't work for me. I know you have broken free of the handcuffs, so you don't have to try to provoke me and then sneak attack. Oh? Really, you guy who loves fitness? You Dr. Li broke his defense by his trash talking, his chest undulated violently, and it took a while to return to normal. Zhang Ju shrugged and threw the handcuffs on the ground casually. As early as the beginning of the interrogation, he had already broken free of the handcuffs by dislocating his thumb. As the other party said, he originally wanted to sneak an attack on an interrogator, or a higher-level officer, as a bargaining chip for subsequent negotiations. He knows very well that if this is really the SCP world, with his current situation, it is impossible to be released. Maybe he will be contained as a containment object. He must find a way to leave. In these days of interrogation, he has already made a series of plans. Even if the attack is not successful, he still has. Dr. Li didn't know what he was thinking, and he hummed, "You should be thankful that I didn't let the interrogator approach you. If you hurt him, we won't be talking in this situation at this time." Understood, I understand. Zhang Ju nodded. It's nothing more than being pointed at the head by dozens of MTF members. Dr. Li frowned slightly. Do you know MTF? Seeing him, Zhang Ju smiled and said, not only do I know MTF, I also know that you belong to the SCP Foundation, and this is a containment site. This time, Dr. Li finally moved. He put his hands on the table and stared at Zhang Ju. Boy, you have a problem. He said slowly. Dr. Li's reaction was just as Zhang Ju had expected. Ordinary people don't know what MTF is, let alone the SCP Foundation. Zhang Ju said again, the lizard chasing me is 682. Dr. Li did not answer his words, tilted his head, and asked, what else do you know? I know a lot. In addition to 682, I can at least name dozens of SCP projects' names and characteristics, such as statues that will twist other people's necks, bottomless stairwells, coffee machines that output any beverages, women who can't wear clothes, weight and so on. Zhang Ju smiled slightly, but I can't tell you. It depends on your level, so I told you a little bit. You reading www.yuyuganshu.com. I said, yes. To get more information from me, you have to find someone with a higher level. After Zhang Ju finished speaking, Dr. Li's heart shook slightly. Some of these projects, some he has heard of, some even he doesn't even know. But he can confirm that these are definitely not made up by Zhang casually. However, Dr. Li did not show anything unusual. He sneered and said, "You seem to have made a mistake. Here, you are not qualified to negotiate terms. It's not up to you whether I am qualified to negotiate terms." Zhang Ju looked up and smiled at the camera in the corner of the wall. "I'm right." A middle-aged man wearing a black trench coat walked into the interrogation room, and Dr. Li quickly got up and gave him his seat. "I am the deputy webmaster of this site, Huang Xingwen." He looked at Zhang Ju with sharp eyes like a falcon. "I want to remind you that you only have one chance. If you can't provide me with effective information, then what you will face is I know." Zhang Ju waved his hand and interrupted him. "For persons of unknown origin, the Foundation has the right to investigate, interrogate, research, imprison, and detain, and use various levels of amnestics according to the situation and put them back into society. Sent to prison or consumed as class personnel." Zhang Ju's speech was very fast, as if he was going through the mouth. Obviously he was quite familiar with the Foundation's handling. Huang Xingwen narrowed his eyes. "It seems that you know a lot about the Foundation." I said, "I know much more than you think. It's best to be like this." Huang Xingwen said, "But I still want to emphasize that if you can't prove your worth, the Foundation will adopt Dr. Li's suggestion, cut you into a piece, and then make a specimen." 3 days later, Zhang Ju was taken to a proving ground. In the test site, a huge lizard several stories high screamed up to the sky and roared in anger. It was SCP-682. Its whole body is bound by countless iron chains, and it constantly exudes a dark atmosphere, as if it has just crawled out of hell. Item number, SCP-682. Item level, Keter description, SCP-682 is a huge reptile creature of unknown origin. It exhibits extremely high intelligence. During the limited contact time between it and SCP-079, very complicated communication between them has been observed. SCP-682 showed a hatred of all life, which was confirmed by several exchanges with it during containment. Special containment procedures. SCP-682 must be destroyed as soon as possible. Currently, the SCP team cannot destroy SCP-682, but can only cause a lot of physical damage to it. SCP-682 is to be contained in a container of 5mx5mx5m, and the container is to be filled with hydrochloric acid until SCP-682 is completely submerged and unable to resist. If SCP-682 attempts to move, speak, or disrupt containment procedures, it must respond quickly and respond with full force as appropriate. In order to avoid irritating SCP-682, employees are forbidden to talk to SCP-682, and any unauthorized personnel attempting to communicate with SCP-682 will be forcibly taken away. I remember you said that you came here because of SCP-682. Dr. Li said, "In this case, let's start with it first." Zhang Ju, the Foundation has always wanted to kill SCP-682, but never success. I don't know what you can do. Since that day he said that Dr. Li is gay, he hasn't shown Zhang Ju a good face. It is probably a grudge. SCP-682 is known as the Immortal Lizard. The SCP Foundation used many methods, such as missile bombing, poisoning, laser cutting, and even taking it to a different space, but it failed to kill it. It was truly immortal. Looking at the angry SCP-682 in the test site, Zhang Ju spread his hands. "Dr. Li, whether you admit it or not, 682 cannot be killed. Your uncle will always be your uncle." "Oh? Really, this is the answer you gave?" Dr. Li sneered. "Stupid outsider, I thought you would have any new ideas." "I didn't expect it, but so. To tell you the truth, I thought of it. A good way to deal with it. Would you like to take a look?" Dr. Li took out a box of special texture from his arms and opened it carefully. Inside was a crystal-like object. He proudly said, "Do you know what this is?" Zhang Ju took a look and recognized the contents of the box. It should be a fragment of SCP-409. Item number, SCP-409. Item level, Keter description, SCP-409 looks like a large quartz crystal, approximately 1.5 meters high and 0.6 meters wide. Any object that comes into contact with SCP-409 will crystallize within the next 3 hours. This effect will occur on any material except granite. The crystallization effect will spread at a speed of 2.5 cm per minute, and the inside and the surface will be crystallized. When the crystallization is completed, the object will crack and squeak in the next 20 minutes, and then suddenly break into countless pieces. Special containment procedures. No physical contact with SCP-409 is allowed under any circumstances. Any objects that have been in physical contact with SCP-409 must be immediately isolated, including materials used for transfer. SCP-409 must be kept in a granite box at all times. Any transfer of SCP-409 must be done in a granite container. All residues of SCP-409 and the props used to transfer the residue must be sealed in the granite container. Seeing this, Zhang-Ju knew what Dr. Li was going to do. It seems that this world is slower than the SCP Foundation he knows. Many experiments have not been done yet. For him, this is a great advantage. Zhang-Ju smiled and said, "Do you want to kill 682 with SCP-409? I advise you not to do this." "What? You don't believe it? Dr. Li?" Zhang-Ju shrugged, "Dr. Li, you can die by yourself, don't hurt me, I still have a lot of time in my life to enjoy." Dr. Li gritted his teeth with anger, "Zhang-Ju, you don't talk coldly here, Deputy Station Master Huang will know in a few days, you are a trash, everything you know is hearsay, when the time comes, it depends on how I clean up you." So, Dr. Li wanted to prove that he was a useless person by killing 682. Zhang-Ju was too lazy to wrestle with him, yelling, "What is that, anyone? I want to pee, do not make noise." A stern female voice sounded from behind them. Zhang-Ju turned back, and a young woman in her 20s walked towards them. She was holding a notebook in her hand and seemed to be making records of the experiment. Seeing the visitor, Dr. Li's distorted face instantly changed into a flattering smile. "Dr. Shui Yang, are you here?" Zhang-Ju glanced at her. It is not easy for this little girl to become a doctor of the SCP Foundation at such a young age. The woman called the doctor frowned slightly and said to Dr. Li, "Why are you here?" Dr. Li laughed and said, "Isn't this the execution experiment of 682 has been approved?" As for him, the Deputy Station Master said that he will be taken with him for the experiment these days, just for a visit. Yang Shui remembered what had happened a few days ago, and looked at Zhang-Ju. Is he the person from parallel time and space? Exactly. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Dr. Li nodded, "We are going to execute 682 and take him to see." He said that 682 is impossible to be killed. "It's really rare and weird, Dr. Shui Yang, you have to fight Yang." The webmaster has a good talk. It turns out that this chick is actually the niece of the station master. No wonder Dr. Li is like a pug. Zhang-Ju sneered, 682 can't be killed. Anything that can't kill it can only make it stronger. Dr. Yang, you are here, just to be a testimony. I advised Dr. Li not to do this. If he don't blame me if it's convenient, please find me a safe room. It's best to see your video of your executions, and prepare me a piece of popcorn. Popcorn? Yang Shui frowned, what do you want popcorn for? Zhang-Ju spread out his hands, after you fail, 682 will definitely be violent. MTF fights the undead lizards. Doesn't it sound like a good science fiction movie? Dr. Yang held her forehead with her hands, and for a while, she couldn't keep up with Zhang-Ju's jumping thinking. Dr. Li was shaking with anger, pointing at Zhang-Ju and speechless. Dr. Li, it hurts the liver so badly. Zhang-Ju shook his head, look at you, you will have advanced liver cancer sooner or later. How about this? Let's make a bet, how about it? Dr. Li could not wait to tear Zhang Ju into pieces now. He gritted his teeth and said, "Okay. What to bet on?" Zhang Ju pointed to the box in his hand. "If you can kill 682 with SCP-409, I will swallow this thing. If the experiment fails, I don't want you to swallow yourself to thank the world." Zhang Ju smiled, kneeling on the ground and shouting 100 "Grandpa, I'm wrong, it's not too much." Zhang Ju was sitting in a surveillance room, actually holding a bucket of popcorn in his hand. He picked up one and threw it in his mouth, and said with a smile, "Dr. Yang, in a moment you will know how wise it is for you to come here with me." Yang Shui frowned slightly. She really didn't adapt to Zhang Ju's style. The reason why she came here was to monitor Zhang Ju, and secondly, because of a woman's intuition, she also felt that SCP-682 could not be killed so easily. In the surveillance video, Dr. Li and other researchers are making final preparations. They moved the main body of SCP-409, a huge crystal, into the test site where 682 was executed. "Dr. Yang, can you see it?" Dr. Li's voice came from the intercom. Dr. Yang calmly said, "Yes." "Okay, the experiment will begin soon." Dr. Li nodded, then put on a gloomy face. "Zhang Ju, you will pay the price for your madness right away." Dr. Li made a gesture and all the staff withdrew from the test site. SCP-409 was lifted by a special crane and placed on the tail of SCP-682. Many staff, including Dr. Yang and Dr. Li, are waiting anxiously. In order to execute SCP-682, the Foundation has paid a lot of price. If it fails this time, they don't know how to end it. The only thing that has nothing to do with him is Zhang Ju, who is holding popcorn in his hand, chucking. Dr. Yang glanced at him and did not speak. The experiment officially started. 682 was locked by a chain. It had no idea what the Foundation had put on its tail, but it instinctively felt scared and shrank in a corner. Nearly 4 minutes later, 682's tail began to crystallize, but the rate of crystallization was much slower than usual. 682 pulled the iron chain hard and roared. 12 minutes, 682's huge body was almost half crystallized. It was very painful and began to cramp. Dr. Li secretly made a fist, and the experiment seemed to be about to succeed. He shouted at the surveillance, "Did you see it, Zhang Ju? Wait for death." In the monitoring room, Zhang Ju tilted Erlang's legs and ate popcorn. He was so free. Dr. Li's roar was like farting to him. Yang Shui took a look. "Aren't you afraid? Oh, you didn't plan to fulfill the betting contract at all." Zhang Ju took a bite of popcorn and patted the crumbs on his hands. "Speaking is one of my only strengths, Dr. Yang. You have to believe in my character. The experiment is not over yet. Are you so confident?" Having said that, if Dr. Li loses, will Dr. Yang supervise him in fulfilling the contract? Yang Shui was speechless for a while. As if to confirm Zhang Ju's words, in the surveillance video, the crystallization of SCP-682 stopped when the conversion degree reached 62%, and the crystallized part burst, causing a lot of physical damage to SCP-682. Losing a large amount of tissues and organs, SCP-682 let out an angry roar, and the researchers' onlookers involuntarily took a step back. Afterwards, SCP-682's body began to regenerate at an alarming rate. Its flesh and blood reorganized in a very short period of time. The newly born parts of SCP-409 would no longer crystallize. As far as Uncle 682 is concerned, SCP-409 has completely failed. Because the iron chain was also crystallized, Uncle 682, who had lost his bondage, began to attack the surrounding walls. In the test site, most of the Foundation staff were frightened by this scene. "Not good!" Yang Shui in the monitoring room yelled, and she turned on the microphone. "Dr. Li, immediately let all the staff withdraw from the test site." Notify Hongying that 682 is about to break through containment. Hongying is probably the name of a mobile task force. But how did Uncle 682 give the Foundation time to react? After it got out of control, it broke through the wall for the first time and started killing. This experiment completely angered the monster. "It's disgusting!" it roared. Every time 682 breached containment, it caused many casualties, this time even worse. Dr. Li stood under the peripheral monitoring equipment and was the first person to be transferred. But because of the sudden incident, there are still many researchers who were too late to transfer and died under the claws of 682. In the monitoring room, Yang Shui saw this scene, clenched her fists, her heart was dripping blood. She was also one of the persons in charge of this experiment, and she was hard to shirk responsibility for this kind of accident. Most of the researchers were her colleagues. They had wives and children, husbands and parents, so they sacrificed like this. She shouted into the walkie-talkie, "Security section? When will Hongying be in place?" A voice came from the opposite side, "Report, the Hongying team is out of field missions and is currently coordinating with other teams from the headquarters. It will take an hour at the earliest. Captain Zhang has already led the team to assist the researcher in evacuation." Damn it! Yang Shui cursed infrequently. Why did something go wrong at this time? Within this hour, I don't know how many people will sacrifice. She has a solemn expression and her head spins fast. But 682 itself has the characteristics of immortality, the Foundation has no way to deal with it. How to do? How to do? Yang Shui was almost crazy. Then, she saw Zhang Ju. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. After the incident, Zhang Ju said nothing, did not laugh at them, but did not help out. "You have a way, right?" Dr. Yang grabbed Zhang Ju's shoulder, as if grabbing a life-saving straw. "You had expected the experiment to fail. You must have a way to subdue 682, right?" Zhang Ju looked into her eyes without speaking. Yang Shui said anxiously, "On behalf of the Foundation, I promise that if you can contain 682 as soon as possible, the review of you is over, the Foundation will give you a legal identity." Seeing that Zhang Ju still had no response, she said again, "What do you want? As long as I can do it, I will promise you." Seeing her so anxious, Zhang Ju shook his head. "Dr. Yang, it's not that I don't want to help you, even if I have a way, can you believe me, can you believe me?" The question raised by Zhang Ju is very sharp. He is now in the review stage. If Yang Shui listened to him, and caused something bad to happen, both of them might be executed. Yang Shui looked at Zhang Ju's eyes, frowning on her pretty brows, and said every word, "I trust you." "Okay." Zhang Ju nodded, he thought for a moment, and said, "From now on, everything is subject to my command. First, all personnel should stay away from 682 as soon as possible and lead it into a small space. Second, the most important thing is, I don't care what method you use, go and bring SCP-053. Zhang Ju looked serious, not like a joke, and Dr. Yang was taken aback for a moment. SCP-053? That little girl? Yes, that's the little girl. I heard your staff discuss her. I know she is contained in this site. Zhang Ju narrowed his eyes. If you don't want more people to sacrifice, then take her to it now. In front of 682. Immediately. Immediately. Item number, SCP-053. Item level, Euclid. Describe, SCP-053 is a 3-year-old girl who possesses basic dialogue skills and is a little bit more mature in mental development than usual children. Anyone over 3 years old who has visual contact, physical contact with SCP-053, or stays around her for more than 10 minutes will quickly become irrational, paranoid, and bloodthirsty. In most cases, these sensations will all point to SCP-053, and the affected subject will begin to attempt to kill SCP-053 after killing or knocking down everyone in the field of view. Those who tried to kill her would suffer a severe heart attack or seizure and die immediately after causing any physical harm to her. SCP-053 can heal various wounds in a matter of seconds, no matter how serious. Special containment procedures. SCP-053 must be isolated in an area not less than 5 meters x 5 meters with sufficient space for activities, and toys, books, games, and other entertainment facilities must be replaced every 3 months. Food is provided 3 times a day, and 2 snacks can be provided if requests. No contact with SCP-053 is allowed unless it is equipped with a fully airtight suit and blindfold. No visual contact with SCP-053 is allowed for any reason. Only one person can stay in the room at the same time and must be tied by a safety wire. All personnel must leave within 10 minutes of entering SCP-053's isolation room. Unlike the obvious monsters like SCP-682, although SCP-053 is only a little girl, she is no less dangerous than those monsters. In various anomalous containments of the SCP Foundation, SCP-053 is of the cognitohazardous type. To put it simply, this little girl, as long as she sees her eyes or touches her, she will have the urge to kill her, but once she takes action, she will immediately hang up. This mom is simply fishing law enforcement. For humans, she is a plague god, and everyone avoids it. The doctors of the Foundation never thought of using her to deal with SCP-682. The reason is also very simple. Most people who die because of her are caused by heart disease or epilepsy. No one would think that SCP-682 would die from these 2 things. Yang Shui finally looked at Zhangju. She knew Zhangju was not joking. She picked up the walkie-talkie. Is Zhang Hedong, the leader of the security team, here? After a while, an answer came from the walkie-talkie. Report to Dr. Yang that Zhang Hedong, the leader of the security team, has died. I am the deputy leader Wanbing, please give instructions. According to reason, Dr. Yang does not have the authority to command security personnel, but her uncle is the station master, and she is also committed to doing things, so everyone is accustomed to obey her orders. Hearing that team leader Zhang had already sacrificed, Yang Shui closed her eyes slightly, and forced her sorrow to say, I order all security personnel to stop fighting with SCP-682 before the Hongying is in place, and lead it to test area B2. In addition, take SCP-053 out of the containment chamber and bring it to 682. There was some hesitation on the walkie-talkie. Dr. Yang, the transfer of SCP-053 needs to be signed by the station master himself. In case something goes wrong, do as it is. Yang Shui said calmly, I will take care of it if something goes wrong. Since Dr. Yang said so, the deputy team leader Wanbing had no choice but to agree. Understood. Putting down the walkie-talkie, Yang Shui was slightly silent. Zhangju was restored to the state of being a fool. I thought you were used to this kind of thing. What's up? Sacrifice. Yang Shui raised her head and looked at Zhangju. Zhangju seemed to have missed her gaze. Ask you a question, why is the SCP Foundation called SCP? Yang Shui hardly thought. Secure, contain, protect. Zhangju continued, then you have to be clear that with protection, there will be sacrifices. Those abnormal projects have never been easy to deal with. The Foundation has been destined to be accompanied by death from the day it was established. Yang Shui lowered her head. She thought of her father whose whereabouts are still missing. Zhangju thought of Tal Oran and Wheeler. Some heroes will be remembered, and some people may not even be able to leave their names. He put popcorn on the table and got up from the chair. What are you going to do? Zhangju patted the popcorn crumbs on his hands, pulled the corners of his mouth, and showed a smile. Of course I went to the scene to take a look. You have taken the responsibility. If I, the person who made the idea, didn't do something, wouldn't I be laughed at? Zhangju did not act as a hero. He wanted to go to the scene, first to make sure the plan went smoothly, and second, he wanted to meet 682. Dreamed of 682 before crossing. He wanted to know if the two were related, and if he could return to the original world. Under the leadership of Yang Shui, the two rushed all the way to the B2 test area. Researchers who had taken refuge along the way showed puzzled glances at the two retrogrades. Dr. Yang? What are you going to do? Hurry up and take refuge with me, 682 is going to chase you. Among the fleeing crowd, Dr. Li suddenly appeared and stopped in front of the two of them. Zhang Ju didn't even look at him, but went straight over. Yang Shui was very anxious and said, Dr. Li, Zhang Ju knows how to subdue 682. Let's go and see it together. You should go to evacuate first. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Dr. Li was surprised. SCP-053? Just rely on that little girl? Dr. Yang, don't go to the doctor in a hurry. How can you trust an outsider? SCP-682 waits for the mobile task force to deal with it. You quickly follow. I'm going to take refuge. If something goes wrong with you, how can I explain to the station master Yang? Dr. Li said, going to pull Yang Shui's hand. Yang Shui retracted her hand and shook her head. No one can sacrifice anymore. We must contain 682 immediately. After she finished speaking, she left without looking back. Dr. Li looked in the direction where she disappeared, gritted his teeth, and chased after her. Zhang Ju and Yang Shui ran all the way and finally came to the periphery of the B2 proving ground. The gunshots in the front were endless, and the bodies of several security personnel were lying on the ground. The fighting was quite tragic. In order to bring Uncle 682 here, the security personnel paid a lot of price. Zhang Ju stopped and waited and asked, when will SCP-053 arrive? Yang Shui looked at his watch, immediately. Because of the special nature of SCP-053, no one can have line of sight or physical contact with her, nor can they stay by her side for more than 10 minutes. Escort is a bit troublesome. Seeing the sacrificed companions all around, and looking at the few remaining security team members in the test field, Yang Shui squeezed her fist hard. Zhang Ju, if SCP-053 can't stop 682's rage, I will be the sinner of the Foundation, and I will kill myself. Unlike Dr. Li, Yang Shui has a strong sense of responsibility, no wonder the Foundation people trust her. Understood. Zhang Ju nodded and looked at her affectionately. If that's the case, you can leave without worry, I will remember to burn the paper for you. Under everyone's gaze, an angry 682 went straight to the two of them. No accident, after a few seconds, they will be torn to pieces. Yang Shui couldn't help turning her head. Just then, a shocking scene happened. For some reason, the moment SCP-053 was seen, SCP-682 suddenly reacted strangely. Is like a big truck driving at high speed suddenly braking, its front legs bend and stretch forward, forcing its speed to drop, as if for fear of hurting the little girl in front. Finally, it stopped its massive body 2 meters in front of SCP-053. Then, like a puppy, he lowered his head and lay on the ground, extremely docile. Is in sharp contrast with the previous violent. Its body shrank sharply until it was only about 3 meters in length. As seen to the naked eye, SCP-682 has recovered from its violent state. Guru. Seeing this scene, Dr. Li couldn't help but swallow. All the researchers who were onlookers were stunned, and no one thought it would be such a result. The lawless, immortal SCP-682 is actually afraid of a little girl. Yang Shui looked at Zhang Ju's back in a daze. She suddenly had the idea that no matter what the price was, Zhang Ju would be pulled into the SCP Foundation. The information he holds in his head is so precious that it can save countless people from disasters. For the Foundation, he is a living guide. Those researchers also realized this, and they looked at Zhang Ju like a god. If Zhang Ju knew the results of the test, even if only part of it, they would not have to live in fear every day. Seeing such a huge monster, 053 was a little frightened. She wanted to grab Zhangju's pants, but when she thought of her abnormality, she retracted her hand again. Zhangju smiled. "Surely, go touch it." The little girl pursed her lips. Can I? She has a certain understanding of her own situation. Under normal circumstances, the Foundation does not allow her to touch anything, especially creatures. "Go, believe me, it's okay." In this way, SCP-053, with Zhangju's encouragement, approached 682 step by step under everyone's gaze. The hearts of the researchers almost jumped to their throats. The little girl walked to 682's head and hesitated for a few seconds. She stretched out her hand, touched it, and quickly retracted, looking at 682 timidly. The researchers at the rear exclaimed that no one had ever done anything like this to 682. 682 opened his eyes and looked at her, then closed his eyes and exhaled from his nostrils. 053 has never taken the initiative to touch other creatures. 682 has not been violent because of her touch. She is very happy, her little face flushed. She touched 682's head again. This time, she didn't let go quickly. 682 still did not resist. 053 laughed happily. She opened her hands, hugged 682, and pressed her cheek to 682's head, showing a contented smile. Zhangju also smiled comfortingly. At this moment, the researchers can't find words to describe their feelings. Who would have thought that that huge black lizard 682 could get along so harmoniously with a little girl? In their opinion, this is simply a miracle. Gradually, their eyes shifted to Zhangju. If Dr. Li had followed Zhangju's advice and abandoned this experiment, there would not have been such an incident, and there would have been no sacrifices of so many colleagues. The lips are dead and the teeth are cold. If Zhangju can join the Foundation and guide the work, they will face much less danger. These researchers, who have been with danger all day, have never hoped to work with one person in this way. The warm image of Uncle 682 and 053 embracing each other will permanently become the collection of the SCP Foundation. And all this is because of this person named Zhangju. Zhangju keeps track of the time through his pulse. He has been by Shirley's side for more than 5 minutes. He snapped his fingers, and Yang Shui in the back nodded. The security personnel drawn from the containment area came to support cautiously and came to 682 with chains and trailers. Seemed to sense something, and 682 opened his eyes. Except for Zhangju, everyone was too scared to move. Fortunately, there was 053. She put her little head on 682's head and rubbed it hard. 682 wanted to resist, but due to 053's hug, it finally lowered its head and allowed the security personnel to tie it up layer by layer and carry it to the trailer. Those security personnel are walking on thin ice, afraid that 682 will suddenly be violent, and they are also afraid of accidentally seeing 053's eyes. But their worries are a bit redundant. Since 682 was one after another, 053 has been keeping his head down. Zhangju saw that her feet were already wet with tears. 2 minutes later, SCP-682 was transported away in a trailer by security personnel. Everyone cheered, including Yang Shui. The monster that made a big fuss at the test site was finally recontained again. From the containment breach to the recontainment, the entire process only took less than 20 minutes, and even the mobile task force was not in place. And all this is due to Zhangju. If it weren't for him, I don't know how many companions would be sacrificed. The rest of my life is a great blessing in life. Everyone, look at me, I look at you, and rush forward together, lift Zhangju up, and throw it high. Oh, everyone shouted excitedly. Zhangju yelled, "Hey Helidon T, do this, I am afraid of heights, woe the take off my pants, but this time, you reading www.uuganshu. Calm, no one will care about him. Yang Shui watched from the side, and also showed a relieved smile. Finally, things didn't go any worse. Zhang Ju is a rare talent, and she was right. She confessed to a peripheral researcher, putting on protective clothing, and preparing to take SCP-053 away. Unexpectedly, SCP-053 yelled timidly, "Big brother, she is called Zhang Ju." Although her voice is small, it also made others realize that besides 682, there is another monster here. Everyone put Zhang Ju down and raised their heads, for fear of meeting her gaze. Zhang Ju walked to 053 and looked up. The little girl lowered her head. "Big brother, can I see that big guy again?" She was talking about 682. The short physical contact made her feel different for 682. Zhang Ju said, "As long as you live, you will always meet." The little girl knew that she had been with Zhang Ju for too long, and she was about to reach the limit. Any further delay would harm him. "Thank you, big brother." SCP-053 finished speaking, turned around, and prepared to leave. Yang Shui felt a little distressed when she saw her like this. Zhang Ju just wanted to speak, but I don't know who pushed him. Pushed him hard. Zhang Ju didn't have time to dodge, and hit the little girl who hadn't gone far. The little girl fell. Zhang Ju fell to the ground first, and the conditioned reflex usually dragged her down. When he looked up, he happened to see the big watery eyes of SCP-053. No one knows how good SCP-053's eyes are. Everyone who has seen them is dead. Zhang Ju was lying on the ground, holding the little girl's body, but he also saw her eyes, pure and clear. At this moment, time seems to have stopped. People who have been in contact with SCP-053 or saw her eyes will immediately become bloodthirsty. After killing all the people they see, they will eventually die on the way to killing 053. Zhang Ju has just been regarded as a hero. If he is really affected by 053, the nearby security personnel will have to kill him immediately. But everyone is in a daze. No one dared to make any moves. Zhang Ju blinked and touched Shirley. After seeing her eyes, he didn't have the urge to kill. Shirley's ability seemed to have no effect on him. He stood up and patted the dust on his butt. Everyone is watching him. But Zhang Ju's reaction was as if he really just stumbled. Yang Shui whispered, "Zhang Ju." Zhang Ju smiled and nodded, "It's me." Yang Shui's eyes widened, You are not affected by 053. I mean Shirley, you are not affected by her." "Well, it's not completely unaffected." After Zhang Ju finished speaking, everyone seemed to be facing an enemy, and then he smiled and said, "I'm just a little tired." "My God!" Yang Shui stared at Zhang Ju with an incredible face. The cognitohazard of SCP-053 has no effect on Zhang Ju. This is a major discovery. If the mystery can be researched out, the threat of countless anomalous projects will be greatly reduced, and this contribution to the Foundation is simply immeasurable. In fact, not only Yang Shui, but also Zhang Ju himself felt a little strange. But he came here through, probably the SCP project in this universe has limited influence on him. Of course, this is just a guess. After this scene, Zhang Ju seemed to be a godlike existence in the eyes of others. Everyone looked at him with admiration. After all, he brought too many surprises. Well, Shirley has been here long enough. In order to prevent the little girl from influencing others, Zhang Ju must take her away immediately. He touched Shirley's little head, took her little hand, and smiled, "Let's go." No one has ever done such an intimate behavior to 053, and the little girl is flattered. "Big brother, my brother is not afraid of you anymore. My brother will visit you often in the future, okay?" The little girl nodded vigorously, "Okay." In everyone's eyes, Zhang Ju led the little girl step by step, and the two talked all the way, as if an older brother was leading a younger sister. Zhang Ju calculated the distance and probably walked out of the range of Shirley's influence on other people. Then he said, "Surely, you are waiting for me here, brother has something to deal with." The little girl nodded obediently. So, under everyone's gaze, Zhangju returned. Yang Shui looked puzzled, thinking that Zhangju had something to look for her. Directly past the group of researchers, did not stop at all. He came to the back of the team and pulled Dr. Li out of the corner. "You, what do you want to do?" Dr. Li asked in horror when he looked at Zhangju's smiling face. "What are you doing?" Zhangju smiled and hit his nose with a punch. This punch immediately made the tall Dr. Li lose his combat effectiveness. Yin people are fun, aren't they? Left uppercut. You only dare to hurt people behind your back. Right uppercut. I thought I was just a good mouth, right? Do follow. I haven't been beaten by a gangster, right? Fuel consumption. You are a guy who only works out and can't even fight. Ga Gabru follow. This last kick hit Dr. Li's jaw directly, and a few teeth fell. He vomited blood, fell to the ground, and passed out. Hitui. Zhangju took a sip. Garbage. Everyone was dumbfounded. They have never seen someone with Zhangju's style. Before he was a hero of salvation, he was just a gentle elder brother next door, and now he has become an uncivilized hooligan. What kind of person is he? Zhangju rubbed his wrists, ignoring the complicated gazes of others, returned to the little girl, and held her hand again. "Let's go." "Okay." The little girl answered obediently, "Big brother, what did you do just now?" She is used to it and can't look at the crowd at any time. "It's okay, I simply disposed of the garbage. Me brother has always been a hygienic person, you know, you have to learn from your brother." "Surely knows, surely will work hard." Yang Shui looked at the back of these two people, one big and one small, and was lost for a moment. At night, Zhangju lay on his bed, recalling what happened during the day. SCP-053 Kin Limit 682, which he knew a long time ago, but it's not a big deal. What concerns him most is that he won't be affected by Shirley. Whether is a coincidence or another reason remains to be studied, but he speculates that the high probability should be because he is not a person in this universe at all. By making good use of this, you can greatly reduce your risk. It is not without regret, because there were too many people watching, he could not say a few words to 682. But it doesn't matter, as long as he is still on this site, as long as the SCP Foundation still needs him. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com will have opportunities in the future. Zhangju gets up, prepares to take a sip of water and pee and then go to sleep. His feet slipped, and his whole person fell to the ground. The glass in his hand was torn apart, and the splashed shards just struck his face, making him grinning in pain. Is a bit unlucky. Zhangju came to the bathroom, ready to treat the wound. What makes him strange is that there is only a shallow mark on his cheek, and the wound is gone. How is this going? He froze for a moment, then went back to the bedroom, picked up the glass ballast on the floor, without saying anything, followed his handsome face again. Hiss, it hurts so fucking. He immediately returned to the bathroom and studied in the mirror. This time he could see very clearly. The wound he had just scratched healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. This seems like an unexpected gain. He made another stroke on his hand, and when the wound on his hand healed, he finally determined that he seemed to have the ability to heal himself. Why? Zhangju guessed the answer in only 2 seconds. Shirley. He is not only immune to Shirley's negative effects, but also Shirley's self-healing ability. As expected, good people are rewarded. Zhangju can't wait to laugh 3 times now. As mentioned earlier, the world of the SCP Foundation is a monster, ghosts, monsters, and all kinds of weird things. Living in such a world, it is possible to die without knowing how to die. His self-healing ability, coupled with the knowledge in his mind, the probability of survival in this world will undoubtedly increase a lot. Besides, who said he can only get Shirley's ability. The SCP Foundation divides its institutional facilities into site, area, sector, unit, etc. according to their size, which are collectively referred to as sites. These sites usually have the disguise of government or company background. For example, Site 14, where Yang Shui is located, claims to be the headquarters of a pharmaceutical company. Most of the sites containing high-risk anomalies have extreme insurance measures, such as built-in nuclear warheads. Of course, this kind of mechanism is better if you don't need it. Recently, many things have happened on SCP-14. The most influential incident was the failure of the termination of 682 experiment, a riot in the test site, and the accident that was finally recontained. Zhang Ju's role in it is immeasurable, especially that he is immune to SCP-053's influence, which is even more surprising. According to word of mouth, now Zhang Ju has a high prestige in SCP-14, and many staff members hope that he can join the SCP Foundation. The Dr. Li who wanted to harm him has become a bereaved dog that everyone shouts and beats. Deputy Station Director Huang Xingwen made a decisive decision and locked Dr. Li, awaiting further investigation by the Foundation. On the third day after this incident, the station master who went to the headquarters for a meeting, that is, Yang Shui's uncle, Yang Wenbei, finally returned. Briefly met with the deputy station master Huang Xingwen, and he recruited Zhang Ju. Under the leadership of Yang Shui, Zhang Ju came to the station master's office. Mr. Zhang Ju, hello. Yang Wenbei walked out from behind the desk and shook hands with Zhang Ju, smiling. Zhang Ju tilted his head and stretched out his hand. Yang Shui is a little strange. This is not like what an uncle would do. He was too polite to Zhang Ju, and it was a bit of a feast. She wanted to leave, but was stopped by Yang Wenbei. Shui, don't leave in a hurry. As a representative of the staff on this site, you are just a witness. Witness? Yang Shui didn't know why. Zhang Ju said, Master Yang, if you have something to say, there is no need to make so many twists and turns. Zhang Ju's remarks were a bit rude. Yang Shui wanted to say something to make a difference, but she found that her uncle did not seem to be angry. Mr. Zhang is quick to speak quickly, then I won't be oblivious. Yang Wenbei took out a document from the desk and his expression became serious. Mr. Zhang Ju, I would like to officially inform you on behalf of the SCP Foundation that you have passed the review of the Foundation, and the Foundation will lift the restrictions on you and give you a legal identity. At the same time, we also send you a sincere invitation. I hope you can join the Foundation and contribute to the survival of human society. Mr. Zhang, are you willing to become a member of the SCP Foundation? After Yang Wenbo finished speaking, Yang Shui was taken aback. The thing she thought about the most in the past 2 days was how to persuade her uncle to let Zhang Ju join the Foundation. Unexpectedly, her uncle brought back the stamped documents of the Foundation directly. It has only been 3 days since Zhang Ju assisted in the containment of 682. Her report has just been written. Where did the senior officials of the Foundation know? Yang Shui was at a loss. It seemed that the senior officials of the Foundation really held a lot of secrets. It's just that she hasn't formally mentioned this matter to Zhang Ju, and I don't know what his attitude will be. Yang Shui cast a glance at Zhang Ju, but the latter was expressionless and could not see the joy or anger. Zhang Ju's complexion calmly said, Identity, condition. It seems that he had expected this question a long time ago. Yang Wenbei replied, Your identity is specially approved by the O5 Council, as a special advisor to the SCP Foundation, a level personnel, and awarded a level 4 security authority. Special advisor? Hearing this, Yang Shui was slightly taken aback. She has worked in the SCP Foundation for many years and has never heard of such a title. I think it is indeed approved by O5 personnel, and this position is likely to be created for Zhang Ju alone. As for the security authority assigned to Zhang Ju, it is even more frightening. Generally speaking, according to the degree of importance, The SCP Foundation divides personnel into 4 levels, A, B, C, and D. The Security Authority is divided into 0, 1, and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 levels. Level personnel, Level 4 security clearance, which is already higher than most Foundation personnel. It can be said that it is only lower than 1305. On SCP-14, he has almost the same permissions as the 2 webmasters, only slightly inferior in rank. She quietly glanced at Zhangju. What secret is hidden in this man's body that can make the top of the Foundation take it so seriously? She gradually became curious. At this point, Yang Wensong kept silent, waiting for Zhangju's reply. Zhangju pinched his chin with his thumb and index finger, as if weighing the pros and cons. Yang Shui was a little nervous. She wants Zhangju to join the Foundation. The knowledge in Zhangju's mind will make a lot of research go smoothly and reduce many unnecessary sacrifices. In addition, she has a selfish heart. If Zhangju is immune to the influence of the SCP project, can she ask him to help herself and find her father? After a long period of silence, Zhangju spoke up. Webmaster Yang, I admit that the Foundation's conditions are very high, but it seems that the Foundation has fallen behind the most important point if it wants to recruit people. Hearing what he said was wrong, Yang Wenbei was taken aback for a moment, raised his eyebrows and said, "Oh? What is it?" At this moment, Yang Shui's heart is already beating, and no one knows this uncle better than her. He seems to be kind, but in fact he has the mind and the wrist, otherwise he would not be the head of the SCP Foundation, and he would have been for more than 10 years. His raising eyebrows are actually a sign of anger. Yang Shuizheng was afraid that Zhangju's request would break down the negotiation. She wants to tell Zhangju that the conditions set by the Foundation are actually quite sincere, and can even be said to be an honor. Apart from him, no one else has received such high treatment. But it turns out that she overestimated Zhangju's lower limit. As a recruiting unit, the SCP Foundation doesn't know what its employees really want. Zhangju shook his head. Yu read www.yuyuganshu.com, gritted his teeth and said, "What level 4 permission? Do I use it to lay pups? How much do you open a month? How do you arrange your working hours? 996? 007? Are there 5 insurances and 1 housing fund? How much is the year-end bonus? And whether there is a share of stocks? This is what I care about." Zhangju looked agitated, rather anxious, throwing out a lot of questions, spitting and flying stars. Yang Wenbei was puzzled by his questioning. As the head of the SCP Foundation, his focus was on world-class problems. These questions raised by Zhangju, he really didn't know. Yang Shui covered her forehead with her hand, feeling her brain hurt. She wanted to know if there was any shadow in Zhangju's childhood, and how he became such a freak. Good, good. Yang Wenbei waved his hand quickly and stopped Zhangju's continuous cannons. I'll call to ask, and I promise to give you a satisfactory answer. It's pretty much the same. Zhangju snorted, Webmaster Yang, I'm going to talk ugly, if the final result makes me dissatisfied. Yang Wenbei hurriedly answered, then deduct it from my salary. Mr. Zhang, let's do it like this. Okay. Zhangju nodded, still a little reluctant. Yang Wenbei couldn't laugh or cry, and said, then about joining the Foundation. Zhangju hummed, since you are so sincere, Master Yang, I can't agree to it. I can't go back on the terms I promised. That's natural. After solving the most important thing, the station master Yang was in a good mood. He laughed and stretched out his hand again. Then Consultant Zhang, welcome you to become a member of the SCP Foundation.